Victoria Police manuals come out, you're not allowed to have your own opinion on Facebook. Like, you like Harvey's thing, they're probably investigating you, that sort of stuff. Good chance I can't go back to Vicpol after speaking to you.
This month, Australia is going to decide what direction to take the country, while the mainstream media continue to advocate for more of the same two-party rule that led us to the shocking authoritarian control in the name of health. We at Rebel News are launching a unique initiative to allow freedom-focused candidates to have their campaigns heard, exactly what they don't want. We will give a platform to the independent and minor parties the mainstream media don't want you to know about. So head over to ausdecides.com to find out their stories, upcoming debates, and then share them far and wide to let others know that there is a better option. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to sign up to our mailing list at ausdecides.com so you don't miss a thing in our election coverage. And finally, if you like this initiative and you're willing and able, please give what you can at ausdecides.com to help cover the cost of telling the other side of the story this election. For today's candidate, I caught up with now former Senior Constable Chris Burson, famous for frog marching Victoria's most wanted fugitive, Jonathan Dick, after the dramatic arrest of the samurai sword killer.
I joined the army when I was 19, and then I joined Victoria Police in about 2011. I was in Richmond for 18 months as a probationary constable. From there I went to Public Order Response Team, which you're obviously mates with. Then I went to the Critical Incident Response Team for 5 years. You might be mates with them as well. And then I've been working the divisional van for the last sort of year. I've been a bit disappointed with how things have gone for the last 2 years. Not just police. My drama is, it's like you have state parliament who have obviously affected everybody in Victoria and Melbourne and stuff so much, but I just don't know what the feds were doing. I just found myself complaining a lot about how things were going, and then I was like, well, if I'm not willing to throw my hat in the ring, then, you know, it's either sort of put up or shut up, I guess. My dad's a truckie, my mum's a primary school teacher. I went to a public school at Bourne High. I'm not special compared to a lot of other people. I don't have 4 degrees, I don't have that sort of thing. But what I do have is, and I know we say lived experience like it's a throwaway line that means something, but I've held people's hands when I've given them death messages. I've cut people down that have, committed suicide. During the lockdown, I'd spend hours with 17-year-old kids who'd gone away from home because their parents are having divorces and they're sitting in the car crying because they've got year 12 exams in the morning. I'm like, mate, it's 3 a.m, you've got an exam at 8, what are you doing? He goes, well, I was going to kill myself. So my friends came over and all they saw when they saw police was I was there to breach them for breaching a curfew. And I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. So that's why I've left police. But the government made those rules that then put the police in the position where they have to do that. I was quite vocal about the fact I wouldn't have gone to a protest, so whether that meant they didn't roster me or not, I don't know, but I know plenty of police who went sick on those days because they didn't believe in it, or they just didn't want to get involved, or they just felt like they were underprepared or whatever. But even just the organisation was bringing people from all of the regions to come into a central area that they said was a mass spreader event to then infect everybody and then send them back out to the regions. If there was ever a mass spreader event, it was pretty much our response to it by bringing everybody from a region. The only people who were allowed to travel outside 5k to inside and then send them back. So I found that was quite interesting.
I often made that point at the protest when they would come, packed into buses and roll into town, and there was thousands of them that had all been sitting shoulder to shoulder and then kettling protesters into small groups, manhandling, when if they just let the protest go, it probably would have been safer at the time from a scientific health perspective. So I certainly agree with that. People get the wrong idea in the last 2 years, especially new people who follow my side. They think I'm anti-police. And I know a lot of coppers follow me from before these days, and I used to be one of the strongest voices for back the blue, almost no matter what. I was one of those until COVID, until I saw what happened. I don't think all Victoria Police members are bad. I think there's a lot of good guys in there. In fact, I meet them on the sidelines at even some of the protests where they were just like, hey, Harvey, good work, keep it up. Almost apologetic in their eyes that they're even there. But there was something that we did see for the first time where there seemed to be this element within Victoria Police that we're almost enjoying this new power trip, these new pandemic powers or the emergency powers. Is there anything to that?
Well, I mean, I obviously can't comment on individual coppers, but if you have a look at something, that these coppers joined up, a lot of them, in COVID, so they weren't doing the same academy everyone else was doing. Times have changed from when I went through to now where like, you know, you can use at maximum, you can do 20%, you can't get sworn at it. So then they've gone from this really safe environment where realistically we're not training people properly. So you've got a bunch of people who were working at Safeway, did 9 months in the academy, of which of that 12 weeks is doing barely any defensive tactics, it's all law and that sort of stuff, to then going out and having 400 people who don't want to be arrested, obviously. The bosses have put those people in those situations. So it's a bit hard to sort of judge new people that have been out for 3 days. But I also am well aware that there is groupthink when you get any group of people, like you get a bunch of footy boys on a trip or you do whatever else it is. And that's where the leaders need to step up and go, everyone calm down. We're literally the line in between both sides of an argument. So you can't join one side or another.
If, however, you do take the selfish option and leave home to protest, we'll be ready for you. So while I won't go into the details of our tactics and our plans on the day, be assured we'll be ready for you.
With Cornelius, you can't have a bloke come out and then make public statements basically trying to start a fight with people and then expect the people on the ground to then just either roll over or do whatever. If you sit there and poke the public and then they turn up, he's not there. It's all good and well. He can say whatever he wants. That's fine. Each copper has their own family. Each copper has their own backstory onto what their you know, which side of the fence they want to be on. A lot of ex-defence, for example, versus a lot of coppers that came from somewhere else. Like the background there is different. So I think you'll find a lot of people in the army do not enjoy being mandated to do anything, even though I know I saw in the comments today, they're like, oh, you guys just get yelled at and told to do what you're told. And you're like, well, you do. You get yelled at and told discipline and stuff, but you also get told that you have to follow lawful orders. If you don't have a lawful order, you don't have to follow it. So, and they're big on that in the army, whereas here, they give you the law and then they give you this word discretion. They don't really tell you what that means. For example, that pregnant lady in Ballarat, we're going to the house and arresting them. Like those members probably could have said, I'm not doing that. But then that comes at the risk of them never getting a promotion. So it's like, yeah, they can say no to it, but you can either throw away your career, send someone else who's not going to care and go there and be far more overzealous, or you can go there and sort of try and make the best of a terrible situation. But you'll find that there's no bosses going there to do that. It'll come down from them. They'll email and they'll go, we want this done. And you're like, that's all good and well, but that gets tasked down to somebody to do the dirty work for them so that then they can just be used as a scapegoat, which will be what happens. There'll be an investigation, there'll be a whole bunch of coppers that they throw out, and the same dude who sent them there will, you know, he'll still be there, he'll still send someone else to do it next time. You know, coppers are only staying in, I think, 1 to 2 years for girls, 3 to 4 for guys. So it's like the turnover at the bottom that they can just keep using over and over is fine. You know, and all these guys have got to go home and, you know, they've got to sleep at night and that sort of stuff. So decisions that they've made that they may regret at this point, like they've still got to live with.
You'll have a lot of people watching this, like you say, they may have been pro-copper before, maybe now after the last 2 years they don't have much room in their hearts left for Victoria Police members. What would you say to those that go, mate, where were you? You're standing up now, great. Yeah. Where were you the last 2 years? Why the hell should I listen to you now? Maybe you didn't personally bash anyone, but you didn't stand up for them. Why should they vote for you?
Yeah. So at the time, I was having arguments with bosses about the mandates in the first place. I kicked up a fuss there, and I get it. That doesn't translate outside because, you know, no one cares what happens in a police station. I didn't want to get locked away for 2 years so I couldn't see my friends and family and stuff. I've seen all the drama it's caused at the bottom end, and now I want to bring that and put it at the top where the people write the laws, where they're not exposed to what's happened to the normal people on the ground. For example, I went to a service station. This 65-year-old lady tackled a 50-year-old lady because she wasn't wearing a mask. And then she's like, I need you to do this. And I'm like, she might have a valid reason for not wearing a mask. She goes, well, ask her what it is. I'm like, I don't have the power to ask her what it is. If she's not wearing one, I don't have the power to ask her one. If she reckons she's got a valid exemption, then she does. And then this lady was horrified. I'm like, you've assaulted her. Like, you've actually committed an offence. And then she was horrified at the fact that I was telling her off for tackling someone. I'm like, you've broken a law. She may or may not be lying, that's fine, but I don't have the right to ask her. And I think a lot of police were confused about how much power they had to ask certain things because, I mean, the thing changed every 2 weeks, so I can't really have a go at police for not knowing what the rules were, because you'd go to sleep, wake up, and there'd be an email that came out, you wouldn't have read it because you had to go straight on the road to some crime, and then the rules changed between then and then. So every time that I go somewhere, it's because of a law that's been written by some politician. If someone writes a law, they need to realise that at the end of that is some bloke who has to potentially put his life on the line to defend this piece of paper that you've just written. And it's all good and well to be up the top and write whatever you feel like, but people at the bottom have to deal with it, whether you've committed an offence, whether you're enforcing it, or whether you're the victim. All three of those people are affected by the laws written at the top. And I've been at the bottom end, so now I'm going to the top to make sure that those laws aren't ridiculous and are fit for purpose.
Do you think that in the last 2 years they have been ridiculous laws that they've been operating under that caused a lot of this?
Yeah, 100%.
Did you ever issue a COVID ticket?
No, but I'll barely write tickets in the first place, but I certainly haven't done a COVID ticket. But
You weren't good for revenue raising.
No, I certainly didn't.
I think they might be happy to let you go now.
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to highway patrol. I'm just a normal person who has accepted the fact that I'm probably going to get torn apart in the media at some point, and that's going to be what it'll be. As it is speaking to you, I'm sure that your people don't like police at the moment after the last 2 years, and I'm sure Cornelius at no point wants me speaking about him. So I'm going to get burnt from everyone, and that's fine because that's part of the job. And I feel like if I am not willing to come and talk to people who may not be, or like I was expecting you to be a little bit more hostile, I'll be honest, coming here. But, you know, if we can't have these conversations, then I shouldn't be in politics. And the people up there, you know, like Albo has people come up to speak to him and he's like, oh, I'm only having media taken, like scripted questions. The transparency is, even the way Vic Pol have done things where they're like, oh, we want to see the body-worn camera. Like, you could resolve so many things overnight with body-worn camera footage. Accountability seems to not be something that Australian politics or police seem to be getting all about at the moment, and I think we need more of it. I'll be one person in the Victorian Senate. Labor and Liberal are going to write it, and then it's going to be, if you have minor parties in there, they then have oversight on that, and then we can adjust it to make it less ridiculous, or if it's great, then by all means, we're like, small business owners got shafted day one, no one cared. You know, then they went to hospitality and people couldn't have beers, but then it was all right because you could have home delivery, so people were like, oh, well, I can have beers at home. And then, you know, people had Zoom and they were fine, and then people were getting money to stay at home, so they're like, yeah, cool, I was getting paid more to stay at home than I was to go to work, so those people were happy. And then as it progressed and each mandate affected somebody else, to be fair, it was pretty smart to not do it all at once. If you're doing it all at once, you probably would have had 4 million people protesting, in which case it wouldn't have happened. But
it's like boiling a frog.
Yeah. So you do it slowly, and then, you know, and everyone got offside, and then so you went from there to there, and yeah, and then eventually I saw one bloke, I think you interviewed him, and the CFMEU, who apologised to everybody that lost their job beforehand. And then it came for the coppers. Like we got it mandated, but everyone was happy because we'd been doing overtime and getting paid more than we ever had before. But now we're going to have the third one mandated, and we'll probably have to have the fourth and the fifth because now it's getting written into policy. And so you're getting more and more cops leaving as well. For example, my Gazette that just went out, we had 28 cops leave, and you got 13 in. So you've had a loss of 15 just for a fortnight, and that's happening like every fortnight.
So you say Australian values party, so you're more about values than specific policies. So how would you describe that to the voter at home, the undecided voter at home, going, all right, but what are these values? Well, how do I know I share the values with you?
Well, the values is a funny thing. So Heston actually just cut and paste them off the citizenship test. All these people that come into the country that want to live here, they'll have to sign up to it, and yet politicians and everyone else don't have to. So I find it bizarre that they made this, you know, these 7 core values, but they haven't had to abide by it themselves.
So your approach, interesting, I haven't seen that yet. So your entire approach is holding the establishment to account to adhere to the 7 values that new citizens have to sign up to when they come in.
Right, so you've got respect for the freedom and dignity of the individual, including personal choice and freedom to make your own health decisions. I'd suggest that probably covers the mandate.
So you're going to approach any legislation that crosses the Parliament table, and you're going to say, you're going to look at it through the scope of these 7 values.
Yep. But on the website there is policies and stuff as well.
If you think that these freedom-focused candidates deserve or should have a platform, even if the mainstream media refuses to give them one, make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, share it far and wide. Then head over to ausdecides.com to sign up for our mailing list and donate what you can to ensure that we can continue to tell the other side of the story this election. ausdecides.com. And a little secret, we also plan to challenge some of the fake, independents and those cowardly major party candidates that the media have given a free pass to so far. Watch this space, ausdecides.com.